Hello and welcome to The Real Deal of Hollywood, and today our special guest is one of the most talented, beautiful and successful actresses of Hollywood, MS Sarah Butler. Hello Ms. Sarah, thank you so much for your time and invitation to your beautiful house. It's a real perfect feng shui, I feel like. Thank you so much for having us over here.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for coming over, Victor.
You are a successful actress, and if we talk about Hollywood actresses, your name is over there. And we'd like to learn about your experience and successful story. So if you don't mind, let's go back and learn about your first steps. Okay. How did you become interested in acting and entertainment? Which were your first steps? How you got involved, interested in this art?
Well, I guess I became interested when I was about 10 years old, and there was a school play, and I kind of didn't look back after that. I was very into sports at the time, but I got completely sidetracked by acting. It was just so much fun, and I did it all through school, into high school, and got into doing musicals, and then I did some community theater up in Washington State, where I'm from. And when it came time to choose where I wanted to go to college, I was sure I was going to end up in New York. New York, maybe LA. LA was kind of my backup, actually. I was more interested in theater at the time. But I ended up here. I ended up here in LA, and obviously most of the industry is in film, so what did I do? I had to get myself an agent, and that was a whole process itself, actually. I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but when you don't have any connections in Hollywood and you come here and you have to get yourself your first representation, you have to do cold mailings to the agencies, which is what I did. I got headshots taken, I printed them out, I sent them to all these different agencies, and I got a couple of meetings, and I got a commercial agent out of the deal. So that was my first representation, and that was a big step. Did a couple of commercials for McDonald's and State Farm. And then I got my first big break, which was my first film. It was a film for the Sci-Fi Network that we shot in Romania.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. For me, it was just a huge deal. And, being able to work alongside not only other non-union workers like myself at the time, but they also had Screen Actors Guild actors working there on the film, some of whom had massive resumes and a ton of experience. And one of those people, an actress called Claire Carey, she referred me to her management company when I got back. She didn't have to do it. I didn't ask her to. Which is why it's also worth mentioning that anytime you meet a champion, someone who's going to champion you in your career, you're really lucky to have that, and you should always nurture those relationships, because she just liked me. We got on, she respected the work that I was doing, and she referred me, and it took a bit of convincing for these guys to pick me up as a client, but they did. That's just the beginning. That's like, I view my career as almost like a ladder, climbing one rung at a time. Mm-hmm. And those were probably the bottom 2 or 3 feet right there in a ladder that goes up, like the size of a 2-story house. Mm-hmm. That's about where I am now.
Let's go back again, and let's talk a little bit about your first play, which got you into acting.
Sure.
And then into this art. What was your experience? What did you feel on the stage? What did you feel when you were getting ready, rehearsing, and what did you feel after? I guess there should be 3 different feelings.
Well, you're really making me reach into my memory vault here with this one of memory of 20 years ago, 30, almost, 25 years ago. I think the play, I didn't really know what to expect. I'd never done any acting, but they were making us do it. So I didn't have the excitement level, but I guess once we started rehearsing, and you get that feeling where you can work alongside other actors and they give you energy and you give them back something, and it's this dance. I think if you have it in your blood, just getting that first taste and that first experience of that rush of just creating something completely out of your imagination and being able to play with other people who are also in that same imaginary space, that's intoxicating on its own. And then when you perform and you have an audience and you have that applause and that validation, that's where they really hook you. I think everybody watching this has probably experienced that to some degree, and that's why we're interested in this, right?
Exactly.
It's so fun.
So you decided to move to Los Angeles. You knew nobody. You got your headshots. You started reaching agencies. Mm-hmm. What else did you do to establish yourself, like to make your first step here? Did you take any classes, any cold reading classes, any acting classes, anything?
Yeah, so I actually ended up in California because I was accepted to University of Southern California in their theater program. Mm-hmm. And so I was taking classes through the university. Most of them were sort of academic classes, even though they were within the umbrella of the acting theater curriculum. A lot of them were like, cracking open scripts and analyzing them, which didn't resonate to me as much as far as the actual practical implementation of my acting skills. But we had some acting classes as well, and we learned a few different techniques, Meisner and the likes of that. So I did those. I didn't really feel like I was getting the education that was really going to advance me in my career at that point. And, they say youth is everything in this industry, so it was a bit of a waste of time for me, and money as well, because the tuition isn't cheap at those places. So I felt that I'd be better served if I actually got out there and tried to book some roles. That's when I started getting the commercial agent. But I also got into conservatory style training for my acting. So classes, weekly classes generally, scene study and things like that. And I took with a few different people. The one person that I've always gone back to consistently and who I just love is an acting teacher called Harry Master George. And he's in his 80s now, upper 80s even. And he's been doing this for over 50 years, teaching young actors. He has a number of notable clients that we all know because they're on the A-list, but he won't tell you who they are because he doesn't want to validate his teachings through, oh, look at me, I taught this person, and now look at them. It's very much about your own personal growth in this class. And he also teaches you how to be in it for the long game, which I think is really valuable. You can't expect to study acting and all of a sudden just get it and know what you're doing. It's a journey, and there are different plateaus that you come to along the way. And if you realize that and you're okay with that and you enjoy yourself as you're growing, then you really have what it takes to become what you want to and to achieve your goals. Even the people that you think are breakout stars that you've never heard of, they've probably been doing it for a lot longer than you think they have. So I feel really good about where I am now. I left college after a year and a half. I continue to study with Harry and other teachers in that kind of a format. And I felt that, gave me the basis for the skills that I use every day. When I'm auditioning, when I'm on set, that's really where I gained those skills.
Let's talk a little bit about those skills and your methods, because to me it sounds like you didn't agree with the traditional standard system. You created your own.
Yeah, kind of.
Which methods, which techniques do you use to get yourself ready to get into the role, and especially to get into difficult roles for you, for your type?
Well, every role is different, like you said, and some are more difficult to get into. Sometimes you read a script and you're like, I get it. That's me. I would say that. And you've just hit the jackpot, because you'll probably book that role and you won't have any problem performing it. So let's just forget about those ones, because those are out there. But the real challenge comes when you're asked to play someone who is so different from you, and someone that you even have a hard time identifying even, one or two little traits or mannerisms. So I think the first step for me to really get into character is to do a lot of what I'd call homework. It's basically just absorbing the story from the script. You're taking the script, you're reading it from the perspective of somebody who is just enjoying a piece of entertainment, like an audience member would. Mm-hmm. And in that way, you already have an innate understanding of the story and the journey that the character is going through, and it's less analytical and in your head. So I would start by really making sure that I'm prepared and that I understand exactly what it is I'm asking myself to do. What experience am I asking myself to have in order to fulfill this role? But then, the day of performance comes, and that's a whole different thing. And you do sometimes need something a little extra to just make you feel like you're that character, right? I find that working out really grounds me, so I try to have a morning workout before I go. That helps me to get out those jitters, those bodily kind of, quirks that are going on, and just to put my 2 feet on the ground and say, all right, I'm here to do this job and I've got this. I also use music a lot to help me get into character. So if I have to be a badass, of course I'll put on some kind of like, if it's heavy metal or something, revenge music. And every character would have its own different playlists. So sometimes I create different playlists that I'll put my earbuds on and just escape to that world, so that I can kind of block out all the distractions that happen on a movie set or in an audition room. In the waiting room for auditions, there's all sorts of distractions. Mm-hmm. You have to block all that out and just stay focused, like a horse with blinders on. It doesn't matter who else is there and who else is auditioning. The story that you are trying to become a part of, and the world that you've created for yourself, to stay in that world. So music is really helpful for that. Wardrobe sometimes helps. Mm-hmm. Styling yourself, what you wear, how you style your hair and your makeup if you're wearing makeup, and these are all tools, but it depends on the role. Mm-hmm. Whatever makes you feel like you are that character. These little things can add a lot.
You just mentioned that you do workouts. I believe, to be in a good shape as you are, you also have a nutrition plan.
Yeah.
What is your workout plan? What do you do to keep yourself in shape and, healthy?
Well, my favorite workout is hot yoga. I go to a place in LA called Moto Yoga. It's really great. So they heat up the room and they make it really humid, and then they hold their yoga classes in there. And generally the ones I gravitate to are the more flow classes, because they require more strength and endurance. So it's an actual, cardio strength workout, in addition to the obvious benefits of flexibility and balance that you get from a practice like yoga. Mm-hmm. So I find it very all around a great practice for keeping in shape and keeping your mind in shape as well. Because if they're a good yoga teacher, they will incorporate some kind of spirituality into the class, which is really great for us actors, because we tend to be a little loopy. Mm-hmm. So I do that. I do, short jogs. 3 miles is usually a good distance for me, and I'll just jog around the neighborhood and enjoy the sunshine and the fresh air. Mm-hmm. And then to complement it, you mentioned nutrition, and I believe nutrition is really the key, that a lot of people don't quite understand how important it is when they're trying to get into shape and to maintain a certain physique. I'd say it's maybe closer to 70 or 80% nutrition, and the rest is the workout. So personally, I don't do something very extreme with my diet because I find it's not sustainable. If I try to be too strict with myself, I'll end up binging and it's just all down the drain. So I try to be reasonable and within a healthy parameter. And I'd say that my nutrition plan is most closely represented by a keto diet, which is, high in lean proteins and vegetables and fruits and healthy starches like sweet potatoes and things like that. So, I stay away from, things like donuts and stuff unless it's a special occasion. But I do allow myself those sometimes, and you'll notice I'm drinking black coffee today. I never put cream and sugar in my coffee. Just enjoy the nice coffee or the tea, whatever it is.
The original taste.
Don't add a bunch of dairy and sugar to things that you're eating or drinking. Try to enjoy them for what they are. And you do develop a taste that, supports this kind of thing over time. You don't want as much fried food. It just doesn't sound good. It upsets your stomach. So anyway, that's kind of, a vague idea of what I do. But I think you have to ask yourself, what are you able to maintain? Don't try to do something too crazy that you're going to give up in a month or less.
I've been following you on Instagram, and I saw that you have your own little garden.
Yeah.
So you decided to have your own non-GMO organic vegetables. How did you come up with this idea? And it's in Hollywood, it's not on the ranch farm.
Yeah.
It's in the heart of Hollywood. And you have all those tomatoes, you have, I saw you have some oranges, lemons, and all other different things. How did you come up with this idea? And how do you maintain? Because all these plants, they need care, everyday care.
Yeah. Well, I'd say that gardening is my other passion. I discovered it a little bit later in life than acting and entertainment, but I've been growing my own food for probably about 5 years now. And I had a bunch of houseplants before that. I think houseplants is kind of that, that gateway into the plant world. But Hollywood is a kind of a weird place to have a hobby like this. And luckily I do have more space than the average person does in Hollywood. But I would like to share with people how easy it can be, even in a small space in an urban environment, to grow something. I think a lot of people have interest in growing things now, and especially because people are realizing how important it is to, eliminate chemicals from our farming processes and to try to eat really wholesome, whole foods. But people still think that it's above their abilities to do so. And actually, I'm hoping to start developing some content where I can help teach people how to do this, and in a very grounded, realistic way. So personally, in my garden, I have it on the roof, and I have raised beds, and the raised beds are irrigated by an automatic irrigation system that's regulated by a timer. So every morning at about 4 a.m., the water goes off up there and everything gets watered. And in that sense, once you have a setup like that, it really isn't very much work at all. You still need to go up there, you need to observe it. I mean, first of all, you got to go harvest all the fruits of your labor. And that's what really motivates you to go out to the garden, is like, oh, what am I going to find today that I can eat? It's very fun to do that. It's the harvest. But while you're up there, it's important to take a close look at your plants and to notice if there's any pests, any bugs. Some bugs are good. Most bugs are bad. So, there's a bit of educating to do, but it's really a lot easier than what people would think. And there's prevention methods and ways to deal with every kind of problem that you have up there. Or up there, if your garden's not on the roof, in the garden. and so it's not too hard. And I hope that when I do develop this content, that everyone goes and checks it out. I'll be launching a YouTube channel shortly, and I think people will be really surprised to see that even if they have a tiny patio, they can put some pots there. And the first tomatoes I ever grew were all in pots. Mm-hmm. And I watered them by hand, and I got hundreds of delicious tomatoes, and it was so rewarding. And so you really can do a lot more than you think, and it's very relaxing as well. It's my little Zen place.
You just mentioned you've been growing your own vegetables during the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. How much money do you think you saved having your own instead of buying them? Roughly 5 million?
Probably, yeah, 5 million. That's about it. That sounds good.
So please follow Sarah Butler channel on YouTube, save money, and then you have a chance to buy such a beautiful house in
that's
Hollywood.
how I did it. That's how I did it. Yeah, no, there's a lot of benefits. For me, there's the money saving, like I mentioned before, it's a form of meditation. Mm-hmm. It's really, really calming to just go out and, look at how much this plant grows, like an inch a day, and you can see that, and that's mm-hmm. very rewarding. You nurture something, it's almost like having a pet. But you can't eat your pet, and you can eat your cucumbers,
Yeah.
And then, also, I found it also makes me a bit more popular. Mm-hmm. People think it's cool. They want to go out and see the garden. They're like, wow, I love this. And then when I say, hey, I can pick some tomatoes and some basil and make you a tomato basil martini, then they get even more excited. Oh, wow. Or, hey, let's make a Greek salad out of all the stuff that I grew up here. Mm-hmm. People are just astonished. It's really not that hard.
You've been in the industry a while already, mm-hmm. and how do you see changed from your first step when you came and you started with the agent, with headshots, and till right now? What changes do you see? Is it more difficult? Is it more, I don't know, what details did you observe which changed since you started?
Well, there's a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, as you know, all the new media has created kind of an abundance of opportunity. You have all these streaming services, they all need content. That's the bulk of it. You've got exponentially more cable networks as well. So there is a lot more work out there, and a lot more union work as well. So that's great, but I think where they're sourcing all of those programs it's not networks developing the content like they always did in the old days. Now, I think the industry really expects people to develop their own and to push it into being, and to find that initial financing and find their champions and make a pilot, and then they can maybe, somebody can pick it up. So in some ways there's a lot more opportunity, but as an actor, it takes more initiative and more work and investment to get yourself into that arena, because you need to be able to write, develop, produce, or find people who can do those things for you. But if you do, what you're rewarded with is an industry that's a lot more welcoming of individual, very unique content and characters. The entertainment isn't so mainstream. There's not as many formulaic procedurals and, medical and law dramas and things like that. There's all that still, but then you have all this other side of cable shows that are just more creative, that just, come at it a different way and have that freedom. So if you, as an actor, have an idea of a role that that you can nail, and you find a way to either write it or collaborate with a writer who can write that part for you, and then you can, finance a very, low budget pilot of it, then you can take this material and you can pitch it. And I've heard dozens of stories where people's shows get picked up because they've taken the initiative to do this. Mm-hmm. So on one hand, it's very exciting for actors because we do have more power in a way, but we're also asked to do more and to have more skills other than just acting. I believe it's good for us. You know, acting can be a very one-note sort of profession. I think a lot of actors, when they're a few years into their career, find that they're not getting that feeling of a reward as much as they want. And personally, having delved into behind the camera and development on some projects, I can tell you it does give you a bigger sense of satisfaction and productivity when you know, take the leap to try something like that. You just have to try. Just try. Don't tell yourself, oh my gosh, I'm not a writer. What do I think I'm doing writing? Just write something. If you write something, then you're a writer, you know? Magic, just like that. There's one other thing too that I want to highlight about how the industry's changed, and this is even more so in the past maybe 2 years, is that there's a much higher demand for equality mostly in racial diversity in the industry. And so what's really cool about that is obviously there's starting to actually be a semblance of equal opportunity when it comes to different roles. And you know, when I see breakdowns for roles that are going out, most of them now say, you know, any ethnicity, where they used to distinguish, we want this, that, and it was heavily Caucasian. So that's really cool for a lot of people who didn't have the amount of opportunity that they should have. You know, when they have all the skills, they have everything needed, and they just didn't fit the mold that Hollywood wanted them to fit, those walls are being broken down now. And, you know, it definitely makes it brings in a little bit more competition for someone who looks like me, but I think it's the right thing. It's how it should be. And if I book a role now, I know that it's because I did it through merit, and I didn't do it just because I fit the stereotype. So, you know, if you think that maybe you're not someone who fits that, you may be surprised how everything's changing now, and I'd say go for it. Now's the time to give it a shot.
Have you heard, maybe you have in your entourage, maybe you have some beginning actors, which mistakes young actors who just begin their career do, and which you would suggest our viewers to not do?
Okay, don't try to please everyone. Don't try to change yourself to please other people. I remember when I first started out and I was so hungry and I wanted to book everything, and I still want to book everything, but I also understand that there are some things that it just doesn't fit in my wheelhouse. And you know, it's very tempting as a young actor to say, well, what do you want me to be? I can be that, you know. And you know, pretty soon you'll find yourself getting in a situation where you hear about a role for an 80-year-old man and you're like, I can do that, I'm an actor. No, you can't. Don't, you know, try to change your appearance because you think it's what people want. Don't change your personality, be who you are. And you hear this a lot, but it's absolutely true, that your best asset is you, your uniqueness, your personality. And when you feel free enough to just be yourself, that's when you're gonna deliver a performance that really will resonate with people. Because this industry can be very surface, but still the core people who are making the best entertainment and the people that we all idolize and we want to be like, they're the people who have maintained that core sense of self. And that's why they're so good at what they do. And when you rise up in the ranks in the industry, you realize you meet more and more people like that. You know, when you're first starting out, there's a lot more temptation to, you know, alter your physical appearance, to, you know, fit into the stereotypes of the types of roles that are being offered to you. If you realize that, hey, maybe this role doesn't speak to me, you know, I don't need to change who I am to fit into, like, oh, I'm the pretty girl stereotype. That was one that I had to go through a lot. I'm the pretty girl, so I can't audition for, you know, the quirky characters. But I'm better at the quirky characters because I'm a little weird in real life. But that's not how Hollywood sees me. Don't cave in and be what they want you to be if you know that's not you. Keep being you. That's the biggest one, I'd say.
Okay, thank you so much. And the last question. 3 tips of success from Sarah Butler for our viewers.
Okay, I would say work hard, be yourself, and do what makes you happy. Working hard, obviously, to get anywhere, to achieve anything, it takes hard work. And acting is no different from that. If you were in any other profession, you would spend 8 hours a day working, right?
Exactly.
So you have to do that as an actor as well. You need to be studying, practicing, reading, watching films, all of that. It all adds to what you're doing. And it should be 8 hours a day. Be yourself. I just talked about that. Your greatest asset is you. Don't stifle yourself or limit yourself based on other people's perceptions of you. Your imagination and who you are is limitless. Don't ever let anyone tell you you can't imagine something or you can't. You can. And then the third one, do what makes you happy. I think that applies to a lot of things, but in particular, I'm talking about don't be single-minded. Acting is really great and fun and awesome, and I wouldn't be doing it for as long as I am if I didn't love it. But I have other things that I do that I love, like gardening, and and these things keep me balanced. They keep me sane. When there's times that you're sitting around waiting for an audition or waiting to hear if you booked that audition or whatever it is. So you need to fill your time with other things that make you happy, and don't just put all your eggs in that basket, because it can be very difficult waiting. So those are my 3 tips.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, for this brilliant interview, for your advices, experience, and wish you best of luck in your next projects, which are coming soon, I have heard.
Oh.
Buddha sent me some vibes. It was Sarah Butler, one of the most successful, talented, and beautiful actresses in Hollywood. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned.